Thank you for joining this video about NExT-GPT, a multimodal large language model developed by NExT++ Lab from the National University of Singapore and presented in a research paper titled NExT-GPT, Any-to-Any Multimodal LLM. With the remarkable progress of large language models, we can provide the LLM with a test prompt in order to get a meaningful answer in response. However, as humans, we are used to communicate using multiple senses, and so in order to have a more human-like AI, it can be valuable to be able to use more modalities as inputs, such as audio, video, and image. With NExT-GPT, it is possible to use these modalities as inputs and get a meaningful answer in response. But not only that, NExT-GPT can also yield outputs in the different modalities if they are a better match for the provided input. From here the paper title of Any-to-Any Multimodality. In this video we will dive into the research paper to understand how this innovative system works. Let's start by reviewing the NExT-GPT framework with the following image from the paper. On the left we see the possible input modalities of text, image, audio and video. In the center we have a large language model, which is the core of the framework, and we want it to process the input from all modalities and guide the generation of outputs for all modalities. So how NExT-GPT overcomes that? The NExT-GPT system consists of three main tiers. The first tier is multimodal encoding stage, which is in charge of converting the inputs, which are not text, to text prompts, and this stage happens in two steps. The first step is called multimodal input encoding, where each input is passed via an encoder that can process its modality, which gives us semantic embeddings of the input. The second step is called LLM-centric alignment, where the embeddings are passed via small linear models, which are called input projections models, in order to generate text from the embeddings, which the LLM can understand. The second tier is LLM understanding and reasoning stage, where the core LLM eats the text response, but also instructions for the other modalities generation. So the LLM output can contain multiple parts, which are distinguished using special tokens, IMGI, AUDI, and VIDI, that the LLM is using to signal that there should be output for the certain modality, and which part in the LLM response is related to that modality. The third tier is the multimodal generation stage, which is in charge of generating the final output for all modalities, based on the LLM response. This stage has two steps. The first step is instruction following alignment, where the output from the LLM that is relevant for the non-text modalities is passed via small transformer-based models that are called output projections models that convert the LLM outputs into representations that can be processed by the modalities decoders. The second step is multimodal output generation, where we generate the output for each modality from its specific diffusion decoder. Overall, the NExT-GPT system has many components, but in order to train it we only need to train a very small portion of the weights. The modality encoders are in fact from ImageBind, which is a fascinating model by Meta AI that can process multiple modalities and yield semantic embeddings in the same embedding space. We've covered ImageBind thoroughly in a dedicated video, which you can find in the description of this video, and these encoders are kept frozen during NExT-GPT training, as we can see with the snowflake symbol attached to them. The diffusion models are also taken as is, where the image diffusion model is stable diffusion, the video model is zero-scope, and the audio generation model is audio LDM, and all of them are also kept frozen during the training process. The LLM used here is Vicuna 7B, which is common in other multimodal LLMs, and it also remains frozen. This is actually not entirely correct, since a small amount of lower weights are trained here. The researchers show the full system configuration in the following table from the paper, where we can see ImageBind is the encoder with 1.2 billion params, which is marked as frozen. The input projections layer, which is trained, has 4 million params. The LLM has 7 billion params, which are frozen, and 32 million trainable LoRa weights. The output projections layer has around 30 million weights for each transformer, which are trained, and the frozen diffusion models, which together have approximately 4 billion params. Overall, only 1% of all weights are trained. Before moving on, if you like this content, then please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button to help this channel grow. Let's look at an example from the paper for a conversation with NExT-GPT. On the left we see a text prompt which is being fed into the LLM, talking about going to the seaside during the summer. The multimodal input encoding is grayed out, since there is no other input in addition to the text prompt. The LLM then yields a text response, talking about beach volleyball as an example for sea activity, but also it yields an image signal tokens that are being converted to input for stable diffusion. which yields a valuable image. Next, we see another step in this conversation, where the user says he is more into surfing and would like to create a video about it, providing a surfing image as a reference. And now we see that the image encoder and projection are not grayed out and passed to the LLM in addition to the text. As output, we get a text saying that here is a video reference and another surfing video is generated. Let's now dive deeper into how NExT-GPT system is trained, starting with lightweight multimodal alignment learning. Earlier we've reviewed the architecture which we see here, and now we are going to focus on how the input and output projections models are trained, also referred as the LLM-centric alignment and the instruction following alignment steps. We start with the encoding size LLM-centric multimodal alignment step. In the following diagram from the paper, we see the training process of the input projections models, where we use pairs of image and text captions, audio and text caption, and video and text caption. And we feed the non-text input to the encoder, which yields a representation. The representation is then fed to the input projections model, which yields an aligned representation for the LLM. The LLM then yields a response, which is compared to the text caption which match the input we provided to the encoder, and the loss is propagated to the input projections model. The encoders and the LLM are kept frozen here. Next we review the decoding side instruction following alignment step, where we still use similar caption inputs as before. We do not use any generation of image, audio and video here, which is very interesting. The way it works is that the LLM outputs a response with a signal token, which is passed via the output projection model, and the output from the output projection model is compared to the encoding we get when feeding the caption to the text encoder of the diffusion model. So we only need the text encoder from the diffusion model and we don't need to run the diffusion process, which makes this step very efficient. Another training step that is meant to help NExT-GPT to follow instructions that include inputs for multiple modalities is modality switching instruction tuning. In this step, we keep on training the trainable component we just saw and also train the LoRa weights. In this step, we feed the system with dialogue inputs that include multiple modalities, as we can see on the left. The LLM generates the response with modality signal tokens. We then compare the LLM output with gold annotations to calculate the loss that will update the LoRa weights. But where are the gold annotation of LLM outputs come from? The researchers use three types of data. One is text plus X to text, which means that the input are tuples of text and a sample from other modality, and the gold annotation is a caption text. Here they have used existing dataset that were used in other multimodal LLMs. Second, which is not as common as the first type, is text to text plus X, where the input is text and the output is a tuple of text and other modality. They created this dataset by using data similar to the first dataset, where the input are tuples of text plus X, and reversed it. In addition, they have used GPT-4 to wrap the caption, which is now the input, to make it look like an instruction. The first two datasets are too simple for the goal of NExT-GPT. So here comes the third dataset that contains high-quality instructions that contain dialogue with multiple responses and multiple modalities, where they leverage GPT-4 to create the conversation and added images, videos and audios to the conversation where it was proper to do so. Okay, so we're now ready to see some results. In the results sections in the paper we can find the following chart, where on the x-axis we see classes of examples, divided based on the modalities in the input and the output. And on the y-axis we see the performance of NExT-GPT on the examples class. Since there is lack of benchmark for evaluation, the performance is given by human evaluators who score the performance on a scale of 1 to 10. Noticeably, generating images from various kind of inputs works best, as we can see with the top 3 bars. Thank you for watching and I hope to see you again in the next video.